It's Spud Life, the show where each week we embark on a journey that celebrates the richness of human life and the power of storytelling. Join me as I delve deep into the diverse perspectives of each guest's individuality and explore their intimate stories. Stories that will inspire and entertain you. I'm Tatty Tim. Welcome to the show. Okay, let's crack on. So hello, welcome back to another episode of Spud Life. Welcome back to the Caravan of Love, and sitting with me in it this week is the one and only Legend of Penrith, another Legend of Penrith. Penrith's just full of legends, I don't know what's going on. It's Mr. Nick Hill. How you doing, Nick? Nice to meet you. Thank you very much for coming on tonight. So, what a life. We've talked about all sorts of things at the stall, but I think predominantly how I've been selling you to people to watch and listen to this episode is your sort of martial arts prowess and the fact that this man, if you should be watching this on YouTube, because this man is 72 coming up.
I'm 73
coming up. I mean, it doesn't look it for a start off, but then when you hear what he's doing now, am I right in thinking you're the current Brazilian world jiu-jitsu?
I'm currently ranked number 2 in the world.
Number 2 now.
I'm currently ranked number 2 because I've gone up a belt. And by going up a belt, all the things you did in the previous belt are removed.
Right.
And you start from scratch.
Start from scratch again.
And so I'm currently ranked number 2.
So what's the difference, right? Because I've done a bit of martial arts myself, which we'll kind of get into, hopefully, over the course of this chat. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between jiu-jitsu and Brazilian jiu-jitsu?
Right. Well, so let's start. Judo is at the core of most of these things.
Right.
Judo is a game which is 90% stood up and throwing, 10% on the ground.
Because that's your
core
thing, isn't it?
That's my core. It's what I've done since I was 17.
Right.
And I've been a black belt in that for just coming on 52 years.
Wow. Do they have dans in judo like they do?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They do have dans in judo. I've never been a great
fan of it.
Runner of fans.
Right.
Of dans.
Yeah.
I'm just a second down.
Right.
Which I've been since 1984.
Right.
I've competed against 6th dans and 7th dans and been fortunate enough to beat them.
Yeah.
It's just some people aspire to gather those things.
Yeah.
It's never been.
And is it still? To interrupt, is it still a grading?
Please.
Is it still a grading system once you get to that sort of level?
No, it isn't.
Is it more an honorary?
It's honorary. In fact, to get to certain levels, you've actually got to apply for it, which I always think to myself, well, if I have to apply for it, they don't even know I deserve it.
Yeah.
But why would you bother?
Why would you want
but that's just it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
So you've got judo at the core of most of these things. Jiu-jitsu, traditional jiu-jitsu is Japanese.
Yes.
And it's a mixture of striking and throwing and so on.
Yeah.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu was when judo went to Brazil.
Right.
And then it was pinched, you could say, by the Brazilians. And they put their own spin on it.
Yeah,
and obviously they didn't want to just carry on doing what judo was, or they just say, well, it's judo.
Yeah.
So they moved away. And so if judo is nearly all stood up and hardly any groundwork, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is nearly all groundwork and hardly any stood up.
Right.
And the point scoring system, which each has applied, have drawn them apart so that some of the things that you would have as a skill in judo that would help you to achieve things in judo don't help you even slightly, hardly.
Really?
In Brazil, they're not overtly setting out to be different, but guess what? They've achieved it.
Really?
They've achieved it quite remarkably.
So what you've learned and sort of become a master of over the years in judo, you've almost had to start from scratch in some respects.
Well, in some ways, you're right. Yeah. What it will be is to say that I was quite fortunate. My background was judo, but my coach was a wrestler. He went to the Moscow Olympics.
Oh, wow.
And so I actually wrestled alongside my judo. And that gave me certain skills. Now, in the past, judo and wrestling just were like hand and glove.
Yeah.
You know, they were the techniques were so similar.
Yeah, yeah.
It was brill.
Yeah.
You know, and there I was doing these two things. It helped a lot.
Because I'd imagine going back in time, because judo is more of a Western kind of martial art, whereas jiu-jitsu and judo would have been more an Eastern art, wouldn't they?
Wrestling is more Western.
Yeah.
Well,
do you think they're kind of parallel in different parts of the world?
Yes.
Kind of went in parallel.
Let's face it, you've got one head, two arms, two legs. There's only so many things you can do with them.
Yeah.
And it's usually the point scoring system that diverges. Rugby union, rugby league, same ball.
Yeah.
The rules are different.
Yeah.
And that's how it is a lot. I coached two guys who were predominantly judo players.
Right.
But they wanted to improve their groundwork, so I encouraged them to do as I'd done, to wrestle.
Yeah.
They turned out to be considerably better at it than I was.
Right.
Both went on to go to the Olympics.
Wow.
One went to 2 Olympics and one went to 1. Because they were so similar, those sports.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, the Olympic Association made massive... they put pressure.
Yeah.
Gentle pressure. Gentle pressure, yes. Gentle pressure on the judo fraternity to make changes, to become less like wrestling.
Right.
They wanted the two grappling sports to be separate enough so that it was obvious.
For spectators more than...
For spectators.
Yeah, yeah.
So judo is nothing like really how I started in 1968. It's a different game,
really,
than it is now. Not worse.
No.
In fact, what do they say? Change is the mother of invention, or necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
People have made some very, very interesting changes to the game to not break the rules, but still be able to do some of the things that they could do before. And that's great, because that means you say, whoa, I'd never have thought of that. Isn't that a great way to go around the rules without breaking the rules?
Yeah.
But it's fair to say that when I started the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is 6 years ago,
right,
I thought I would have a lot of transferable skills. But I wasn't. I didn't.
Really?
It's not true. In judo, I would be considered to be a groundwork man.
Yeah.
So I go. So
you thought, therefore,
I'll go to a groundwork sport. This is right up my street.
Yeah.
I walk through the door. You feel more like a donkey in a at Cheltenham. Really, you think I've come into a sport where they've spent the whole of their development on the ground, improving the ground, and making it so... Well, it's just remarkable, some of the things that these guys can do.
Showing my ignorance, is this what a lot of the MMA guys do? Is this
correct?
Yeah. So it is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or just they take bits and bobs?
They do take bits, but so we're in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so as not to make it all too confusing, within Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we've got gi. That's where you look like you're a judo man. You wear a kit, just like judo, you would wear, like the one you would wear in karate. Very similar.
Yeah. And
there's no gi. That's where you would wear a t-shirt and shorts or something similar.
Right. This is both in Brazilian.
Both Brazilian. So they have competitions no gi and competitions gi.
Right.
Now that discipline moves very well into the cage, into the MMA. Because in the cage, obviously, you don't have a gi.
Shorts,
You're just in your shorts and whatever. The striking. Now, within the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu no gi, there's no striking, but there's all the grappling skills that you see appearing within MMA. There's still the choking, strangling, locking.
Right.
All of those things still exist. In the gi side, which is it has that similarity, which helps me a lot. You put a gi on a person and suddenly I go, I'm at home now. I can get hold of them. I can take grips. I'm in familiar territory. And that's helped a lot. That's helped a massive amount, really.
But do you do both?
I don't.
Do you stick with the gi side of things?
I have to put my hand up and say, the no gi game. you need a real engine to be in a no-gi game.
Do you? Is it proper?
I can pretend as much as I like that I'm not 72 years old, but those no-gi boys are on it.
Oh God,
you know,
are they?
The beauty of a gi game is I can get hold of them and go, whoa, oi,
I'm in
slow
control.
down. We're playing this game at my speed, if you don't mind, and so on. So I've never been really attracted to the no-gi.
Yeah.
I find it an attractive sport. And it's great to watch.
Yeah.
And it's highly technical.
Yeah.
And you see it, and you see how effective it is if you watch MMA or any cage fighting. You see how people get held, rolled, locked, choked, all those things. Tapped out.
Within seconds, aren't they?
Exactly.
So,
and they're all skills which you can easily see have come out of no-gi Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Not in its entirety.
No.
Obviously, there are other influences. Freestyle wrestlers are in there. You can see some absolutely top of the range freestyle wrestlers.
Yeah.
But there's no locking or strangling in freestyle wrestling. So they have to get that side of their game up to speed.
Yeah.
Well, like a grappler has to bring his striking game up to speed.
Of course. Yeah.
I've always been a grappler.
Right.
But some years ago, I did think, I don't know why I thought, why do I need to round my game? You know, it's a game.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to
I'm playing a game. Why did I think? I thought I've never done any striking.
Yeah, so you thought you'd give it...
So I better do some striking. So I think when I was about 50, I went back to, I had done a bit in my 20s. I went back to karate.
Right.
And thought, well, we'll give this a proper run.
Yeah.
And I did that through till I was about 60.
Oh, right.
And I enjoyed that immensely.
Yeah.
I was training in Cockermouth with a really top guy, absolutely top bloke. Coaches all over the world, written books about it. He's about 20 years younger than me, but awesome guy. And so I stuck with
that
till I got my black belt.
I was going to say, you got your collection of black belts. So.
Yeah.
So what style of karate was yours?
Well, it's a Wado-based style, because I know that you've done karate, haven't you?
I have.
What style did you do?
I started off Shotokan, which is very long stances, you know.
Correct.
And then I went to, that was at a gym in Birmingham. And then I kind of, whether it was an age thing, I don't know, but it didn't quite gel, you know, that really long stances and, you know, the drills that you go through. And then further down the road in a place called Digbeth in Birmingham. I don't know if you know Birmingham at all.
Yeah.
But there was this other kind of real Digbeth back then. I don't know what it's like now, but back then it was pretty run down, kind of old factories, you know, typical sort of backstreet Birmingham sort of place. And there was this real old old school sort of karate. It was Wadaroo, as it turned out. It was this Japanese guy that owned it, right? Mr. Suzuki, his name was, and it was called the Suzuki Wadaroo School of Karate. Right. Had all the fist and the like a dove and all
the dove. Yes.
And so you go in, and you know it's old school, so it's, you know what gyms like, they stink, don't they? It's a combination of like sweaty feet and sweaty bodies.
Yes. And you're really selling it to the public here. They're really loving the idea of this. They're thinking, this is for me.
So,
yes, that is the downside of it. That is a fair comment.
It does, doesn't it? And if you know that smell, if anyone's listening or watching to this, if you know that smell, you know that smell, don't you? So it takes you right back. Yeah. So anyway, I go in, and Shotokan was nothing. Yeah, it's similar, isn't it? But it's basically, Wadaroo's a lot shorter stances, isn't it? And it's more. So this guy, his English wasn't very good, so everything was taught in Japanese. So it was like you had to count. So it was like ich, ni, san, and that's all I've forgotten. The rest, I seem to be able to count to 3 in lots of different languages. I can count to 3 in German.
1, 2, 3, and then
so, but then it was all the kicks and the moves were all in Japanese, so it was like Maegeri, Mawashigeri, and I forgot the punching strikes, but everything was done in. And he had a few kind of not interpreters, but sort of other brown and black belts that would kind of thing. So you can imagine you walk in there, and the intimidation factor would be quite intense.
I understand that.
And to make it worse, he had this bamboo stick.
Oh, right? Yes.
And he'd split it down down the middle.
Yes.
And because he was big on the kias and the, and all of that.
And if you did,
and if you didn't, you got a whack over your shoulders. And he was big into like.
That's very Japanese tradition.
Isn't it?
Very.
And you know at the beginning, and you'd kind of on your knees, and you'd go down on one knee and then onto your other knee, and then you'd be bowing, and then you'd have a bit of kind of like almost like a meditative sort of bit just before. And if he thought that you weren't, he'd be walking along behind him
with his
just
stick.
right across the back of your shoulders. It would be
old school.
So it was really, really good. But it was like, so I think I got up to that school. I maybe got up to blue belt there.
Yeah.
And then I moved away to a different part of the Midlands, a place called Tamworth.
Yeah.
And then it was too far to travel.
Well known for its pigs.
Yes.
Carry on.
And then there was another kind of karate school that was a Wadaroo. But it was just a couple of normal Western guys that were there. Yeah. And I got up to brown belt there. So and then I moved up here. So and I kind of dabbled little bits. There was a jiu-jitsu school in Carlisle. I don't think it's the same one you go to.
I think it's traditional jiu-jitsu.
Yes, it was. It was. Yeah. And there's a guy, because I met a guy at the store, and he says, and we were chatting, you end up chatting to people. And he said, try jiu-jitsu. And he said, I'll give that a whiz. But man, it was brutal. These boys in Carlisle, they were full on. It was like, I came away more battered going there than I have been in actual proper street fights in the past. It was like, I thought, and I just started the business, and I thought, I can't afford to
go to work.
I can't afford
to go to work tomorrow.
Because they'd put locks on you, and you were tapping out, and they still were, were on it, and it was, it was hard, and there was no, like when you're sparring in karate and stuff, and back then, I don't know what your school was like. It wasn't. There was no full contact. It was just, and it wasn't necessarily a point scoring system anyway. But it was
control. There was control.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, control.
Whereas with this jiu-jitsu school, I think it was at Morton School in Carlisle, it was like,
there wasn't any control.
We were on the deck, and it was like, fuck, what just happened?
Yeah. Well,
so and it was.
It's a challenge.
Yeah,
I think.
Definitely.
And I understand that that you're talking about that it being somewhat intimidating.
Yeah.
Because I've done these sports and gone through the door and put a white belt back on.
Yeah.
I've put a white belt on 3 times now.
Right.
The judo, the karate,
now
the Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And you start absolutely from scratch.
Yeah.
And I would be a liar if I didn't say, walking up the stairs, because we're on the top floor at Body Tech.
In Carlisle. Yeah.
There have been occasions when I've you get butterflies.
Yeah.
And you have no real reason to. In there, they're fantastic people. They look after me so well.
Yeah.
That there shouldn't be any, but just anything where you're going to do
start again,
a combat sport or start again or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's that kind of. It's your own kind of. I can't think what I was going to say then, but it's your own. Almost like a pressure you put on yourself, isn't it?
Without a doubt.
And you're kind of like you're making yourself almost nervous, and you could probably talk yourself out.
Well, you could go back down the stairs.
Yeah.
The first time I went to Carlisle.
Yeah.
To a group which are called the Raji Rollers, which I think is an awesome name. Awesome. If you're a Cumbrian.
Absolutely. If you're a Cumbrian, you'll get that. If you're not, you won't have a clue what he's on about.
I have no idea what you're talking about. And these guys, I remember because first time I went, and for quite a number of years, I went with my son, Isaac, who's also a black belt at judo and was an international judo player, a full-time judo player for 3 years.
Wow.
So he goes in, he's young, he's fit. I walk in behind him. Now, one of the guys who I've got to know really well now, he's nearly a black belt, he's a brown belt. Okay. He admitted to me some years later, he said, when you walked through the door, I thought, that old man's going to get hurt. And he didn't say it in a going to get hurt. He meant, oh dear, no. That old man's going to get hurt. Because there isn't anybody at that club anyway. There's nobody. I think if I went down, there's a guy in his very early 50s. Right. Well, my oldest child is nearly 50. So, it's.
I mean, you'll have learned, because obviously judo, you'll have learned how to land and how to fall, won't you? So that must have helped.
Well,
in some respects,
it did.
When
believe it or not, I really do hope there's no real proper judo man listening to this who know me. They'll go, he's awful at he's awful at landing. My aim is not to land. My aim is to make other people land. But I think the whole point was I felt very much at home because of the gi.
Yeah.
Once they said the gi.
Yeah.
And because at least in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu you do start competitively, you start stood up.
Yeah.
Even though a lot of 90% of the training is done downstairs on the ground.
Yeah.
You start stood up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm in
you're
very
in
familiar ground, stood up.
Yeah.
And there've been one or two amusing situations that where I've really got myself into almost trouble. If it isn't blindingly obvious that I could talk the hind leg off a donkey, I've got myself into a lot of problems. And thankfully people have a sense of humour. So I say things and it's gone before I've had an opportunity to pull it back.
Yeah.
There was one time when we were warming up and running round the mat and the door opened and I happened to come past the door just as the door opened. Now, I'm not just saying this for effect. A man walked through the door who had to duck to come through the door. He's a big man.
Yeah.
And I just said to him, I'm sorry, you're going to have to... Well, I was a little... There were more expletives, but basically I said, sorry, you can't come in here, you're far too big. Bugger off. Right. And he smiled and walked in.
Yeah.
And we kept running around. I think at that time I was a blue belt.
Just jogging.
When we've been running around a couple of times, he'd got to the corner and got himself changed. When he put his black belt on, I came round to him and I just said to him, maybe I should have just waited till you got in through the room. He found it very amusing. We had a good laugh. We've met each other on a number of occasions since. But what I do remember him saying, that night we trained together, just for a short period. And we were stood up starting. And because I was quite keen to stay stood up, we didn't rush to the ground.
Yeah.
And he'd said right away, I could tell your confidence as soon as you were stood up.
Right.
You were. I wasn't fighting a blue belt. I could tell that. Because you're in familiar territory. It's not that you're a superstar or everybody thinks, oh dear, a judo man, throw you at a moment. No, it's not the case, sadly.
So what would be the crack like? So obviously that guy's towering above you. He's potentially a lot stronger than you.
He's got it all going for him, let me tell you.
So does that martial art kind of neutralise those things?
Well, no. It never neutralises it.
So we're
stronger. I'm not Bruce Lee. Nobody is.
No.
When they say, a good little guy can do this, if you're really good and he's a donkey, yes. But generally speaking, the old adage, a good big one always beats a good little one. In 9 cases out of 10, that's the case. If a man comes in front of you and you're training together and he has a skill set that's similar to yours and he's 6'7" and 23 stone. He's going to manage you. But this guy, we were playing. We were training together. So there was no that was different. And also, he's looking across and going, I wonder how old this man is. So he's not.
Do you think he was maybe easing back slightly?
Oh, of course I do. I'm not naive enough to believe.
Sorry.
I'm not naive enough to believe that the boys in my club are sensible enough.
Yes.
I often ask to fight white belts because they don't really know.
No.
They come at you because they see the belt and that's it. And that makes for a good practice for me.
Does it?
Because then I do believe that in 9 cases out of 10, the other way around, my skill set I can sort them out. Because there's a big skill difference there. When I'm stood with that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who's 140 kilos or whatever, and me who weighs 68 kilos on a good day with the wind behind me, he was giving me enough space to see what I could do. And I wasn't giving him any space at all. I was just doing my best.
He was just kind of chilling and you were running around.
I was whizzing around like, not quite, but there's more of that. So. That I think you've said when you moved around, if you find your niche, it isn't just that you find the game that suits you. You've got to find the people that suit you.
Yeah.
And you've got to find the coach that suits you. I am so lucky. I have always found, just by accident, I haven't, I've just rolled the dice and walked through the door of places. And how lucky have I been? My first coach was a man I hold in the highest regard. He's an 8th dan at judo. He's in his 80s. He's a big man, big, powerful man. He's the guy who went to the Olympics as a wrestler.
Right.
He went. There's a story there. He went to the Moscow Games.
Yeah.
He was in the same building. If you remember about the Moscow Games, there was.
Was that in 1984?
It's.
In the 80s, wasn't it?
It's when the.
Or was it the Cold War still on?
When those Jewish boys were hijacked.
Yeah. Of course it was. Yeah. That was the Moscow.
They were in the same. He was a wrestler. They were wrestlers.
Yeah.
He was in the same building as that happened.
Bloody hell.
So
what a story.
Yeah, exactly. It's one you'd not want to remember, but there he was.
Yeah.
Right at the leading edge of world news.
Yeah.
And he was my first coach, and he was a gentleman and fantastic to be coached by.
Had he ever been to Japan and done?
He'd been to Japan as a student and beyond, and trained there.
Have you been?
I had to wait till I was 50 before I had an opportunity to go.
Somewhere I'd love to go to Japan.
I've been 4 times.
Have you?
3 with karate.
Yeah.
And 1 with judo, but really only to watch.
Right.
I went to watch one of our men from our club.
Yeah.
Representing Great Britain at the World Championships.
Yeah.
So we went to watch him in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And that was.
I bet the atmosphere was just completely. Is the cheering and that, or is it just really subdued and a bit of?
No, there is, but the Japanese, well, they're nutters.
Yeah.
I mean, they are so regimented.
Yeah.
It is remarkable.
Yeah.
So at the something like the World Championships, judo in Japan is very much controlled. Or controlled, wrong word, is broken down into. Sets of clubs or sets of universities that are supported by, say, Toyota.
Right,
So big industry.
Big corporate sponsors.
And when the World Championships are in Tokyo, they come along and go, well, we'll buy that block.
Right.
So that block of seats, the
out.
people all turn up,
Yeah.
are all supporters of that university.
Yeah.
They wear the same coloured, they've got the same coloured little bibs, they all wear the same coloured little hats, they've all got
the same
flags, which they've all got the Japanese flag, whap, 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 and you can hear it, when 40, 50, 60, 100, 200 people are all going whap, 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 and they all have these little things they bang together, and when they shout, they often shout at the same time. It's really strange.
Is it?
But it creates an incredible and quite a unique atmosphere.
Yeah.
They're very respectful and very knowledgeable.
Yes.
They understand the game.
Yeah. Well, for them, it is a massive part of their heritage.
Oh, it is. Oh, massive.
Because I'm guessing they're still taught it at school, are they not? Or
judo, it's quite phenomenal. Is judo? I think it's in their psyche almost in Japan.
Yeah.
And you'd say yes. Well, you would say that you're a judo man.
Yeah.
But when I was there doing karate, I remember we'd be in a bar.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you mean? You actually were drinking? Yeah, we're not just athletes. We're athletes. You're joking.
Just sampling the sake.
Yes, exactly. We're in a bar.
Yeah.
And I was with he's now my ex-brother-in-law.
Right.
Now he's an 8th dan at karate.
Right.
He's the #1 guy in the style in this country. He's the #1 guy in the country.
Wow.
Right. And he has little cards, and it's got his name and that in English on the front, and all the same on the back.
Yeah.
So we'd be in a bar, and everybody would start to talk. No one was speaking English, because it is impressive.
Yeah.
And then he'd say, and this is Nick.
Yeah.
He's a black belt at judo. He's training and at that time I was.
Yeah.
He's a black belt at judo. He's trained to fight in the World Masters, and they'd turn and stop talking to him and just talk to me, and I was, he's the boss man.
So the kudos of judo is
massive.
Out trumps karate
It's
10 to 1.
Bizarrely, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm talking now about the general public. You know, if you get in, if you're with karate people, no.
No, yeah.
But if you're talking just the general public,
down the pub, then it's like
judo is a massive game because they're clean. You know, the Olympics, they're just
yeah.
You know.
I suppose it's like with skiing, innit? You know, no Brit's ever going to win the downhill skiing Olympic gold, are they? Because it's always the Austrians or the Swiss or the Italian, you know, because it's on their doorstep. And I suppose the judo, it's where it started, so it's bound to be their thing. You think we'd be good at football by now, wouldn't you?
Well, you think we would. I always say that. I always say. Anyway, let's not discuss that.
I'll delete that one.
This is another awesome thing. I'm part of a coaching team at Kendal Judo Club. Kendal Judo Club is a pre-Olympic training venue.
Is it?
And it was, big. It was...
For like the Northwest and that, or just nationwide?
Or pre-Olympic, international.
So people would come from all over?
People come from... Our connection is with South Sea Islands. So Fiji, Samoa, all them, they come to train with us prior to 2012, and they'll come to us prior to Paris, some of them, not all of them. But it's all due to the fact that historically a man called Tony McConnell, I'll try and make this short because there's a funny bit. Tony McConnell started this program in Kendal many years ago, and it's developed into this. Kendal's got a sort of international name. Well, example would be the first time the Chinese ever sent a team outside China. They sent them to Kendal.
Wow.
And Japs would come to Kendal.
Bloody hell.
Now, there's a guy called Yamashita who means nothing to us. Nobody. Yamashita, who, what? If you run a chip shop or something like that. No, Yamashita was almost a god in Japan in judo. And he came to Kendal, right? And he was training in Kendal. This is a man who wasn't beaten from when he was 19 years old. The only reason he didn't win every gold medal he entered in the Olympics, well, he did, was they actually boycotted the games, or he'd have won.
Won that one as well.
Yeah. He thought, I need to go and get some money from the bank. So he walked down the main street of Kendal. Nobody batted an eye. He's a biggish fella. Sort of looked like you might have said, there's a fat Japanese guy walking down the road. But a bus full of Japanese tourists came past, and he's like David Beckham to them. They stopped the bus. They did. They went. No, they didn't just do that. They stopped the bus. They piled out the bus. They all were having their picture taken with him and everything. They said, "We've met Yamashita." Can you? I mean, you couldn't write that.
That is mental.
But that is absolutely true. Is that absolutely true? You know, and there's the bus driver going, I'm blocking the road. We don't care. It's David Beckham.
That is insane.
And that man had already been training in Kendal for about 2 weeks, and nobody had a clue who he was.
That's crazy.
But
absolutely crazy.
That's as you say. That's the difference in how sports people are created. I know I'm going on.
No, that's what you're here for.
Exactly. I'm at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm in Carlisle. I'm training. I'm enjoying myself. One of the guys says in the club, be very careful there that you don't hurt our double Olympic gold medalist. And I thought, yes, surely you are talking through your bot. No chance. No, it's true. He's over there, Philip. So I thought, well, I'll have a word with Philip. This double Olympic gold medalist. He's probably been to the Olympics. Probably an Olympian. I didn't recognise him. So I went across to him. I just said to him, Philip. He went, yes. I said, double Olympic gold medal. He went, yes. I went, what in? And it turned out that Philip Hines, who was in the 3-man sprint cycling team.
Right.
And the other people in it were Jason Kenny and Sir Chris Hoy. I mean, people, household names. And him. And he was 19 years old.
Bloody hell.
At the 2012 Olympics. He was brought into the team. Almost at the last minute. A very well-known cyclist was sort of slightly moved to one side. He was brought in as the number one, the starter. Okay. and the rest is history.
Bloody
They
hell.
won a gold medal, and they won the gold medal at Rio,
Yeah.
and he was reserve for Tokyo.
Blooming heck.
And there he is, a white belt
yeah.
at BJJ, training in Carlisle. He still is.
Yeah.
Still is a white belt, by the way. He's a lovely
What's
bloke.
the matter with you, man?
And I was training with him last night.
Right.
And he is just the most modest man you've ever... He's an MBE.
Yeah.
He's just the quietest,
unassuming,
nicest man you could ever meet.
Yeah. Like me and you.
Yeah, exactly. His name is Philip Hines.
Yeah. And he lives in Carlisle.
He lives in Carlisle. Yeah. I said, Carlisle, what are you doing in Carlisle? Well, his partner lives in Carlisle. Right. So he was drawn to Carlisle. Yeah, yeah. What are you doing BJJ for? And bizarrely, when he was a child, or not a child, but when he was a young person, he was already been fast-tracked as an athlete, because he was.
Yeah, yeah.
As a cyclist in Germany. They sent them away to special schools for top athletes, you can imagine. Very German.
Yeah, yeah.
And he had a choice. Would he cycle for Germany, or would it be his father's German and his mother's English?
Right.
Or would he cycle for England or Great Britain? Well, Great Britain were and are, top of the tree. Yeah. So he said, I'll go there.
Go UK.
And once again, the rest is history. But what a man. I had to beat him to death nearly to get him to bring his medals. I said, if you're not going to, I'm never going to ever lay my hands on 2 Olympic gold medals ever again. Bring them. I said, and he did. And
awesome.
Just a lovely guy.
If it hadn't been for that other guy, you'd have probably never known.
And the guys in the club don't even know. They don't know. He doesn't say a word. No. He just is. I just love the idea that he's the type of man he is.
Yeah, yeah.
He could walk into any cycling setup anywhere. I spoke to a friend of mine, a man who used to be my boss, who's heavily into cycling. His son's a road cyclist and so on. And when I told him the story...
And did he know his name?
Oh, he guessed who it would be as soon as I said Philip. He said, Philip Hines. I went, yes. Wow. And I told Philip the next time we were training, and he said, is this man's name Keith Atkinson? He said, yes. He says, he's following me on Instagram. I said, he'll stalk you. He'll stalk you. As far as Keith was concerned, I'd touched the hem of the Lord himself. Will you shake my hand? Have you touched
him? Can I touch you?
Because, well, as one of the lads said jokingly at the club, what did they say? They said, don't injure him. He's a national treasure. Yeah. Well, how many double Olympic gold medalists have we got? Not so many. Not so many.
Not many.
Not many.
And I'm guessing he obviously still cycles as well, keeps fit.
He doesn't cycle much at all.
Really?
And in fact, I remember saying to him, when were you last on your bike?
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
He is a man, I think, because he's still a young chap.
What is he in his 30s?
Very early 30s. He's still heavily involved with the IOC, the Olympic Committee. I think he'll end up working for them.
Do you think he'll become on their board?
I don't know what he'll do, but he's quite a forceful young man.
Yeah.
He has a role within a construction company that's based in Carlisle.
Right.
And his role is to get them involved in sport.
Right.
So I think that they held the World Cycling Championships last year in Glasgow.
Yeah.
All disciplines. And he got quite a lot of business. And they provide infrastructure. They provide, generators. All the things that you need to run a big organisation.
Yeah.
And that's his role. His role is to open doors.
Why has he ever said why he suddenly decided to take up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Well, he'd said that when he went to this school that he went to, he said he was, this always made me laugh, he said he was always massively impressed with how hard the judo men trained.
Right.
He said they were always training when we were all taking a rest. They seemed to be up. We got up in the morning, they'd already been up and been for a run. So he was always impressed by them.
Yeah.
And I speak as a judo man, so I'm biased.
Yes, yeah.
But they are very, very fit guys.
Yeah.
Very fit guys.
I mean, I think if anybody's listening to this or is watching this, if they've ever been in a situation where you've ended up fighting somebody, whether it be in a sports situation or in a real situation, as soon as you get on the floor, it don't half take it out of you, doesn't it?
I think as soon as you engage, stood up or on the ground, as soon as you engage someone in a grapple, you'd be surprised how much energy you use very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we've done a lot of work with rugby league guys, pre-season stuff and stuff like that. They love it. You know, they come down to the judo club for a day, and we have them not really doing judo, but we have them grappling with each other. And these are professional sportsmen. They're big, strong men. It isn't 5 minutes before they are finding how hard it is to purely grapple. You know, they tackle, they do all these things, but they don't spend, you know, minutes and minutes fighting somebody who wants to try and achieve what they're trying to achieve. Yeah,
exactly.
And that's the fun of it, really. And it's lovely. It's great to see. Well, this is the thing with Philip. Philip is incredibly powerful. You know, I was fighting with him. I don't know what he weighs. He's not anything like as heavy as he used to be, but I weigh 68 kilos. He probably weighs 80 odd kilos, low end of the 80s. But what power in his legs!
Can you imagine?
You want to try controlling a man's legs like that, and he says, "I've lost a lot off my legs." If anybody's listening to this and wants to, look him up. Look him up. Look at some pictures of him when he's got legs. I'm surprised he can walk. His legs are massive. And he's so... One of the cyclists who's with us said to me, who does road cycling and so on, says, I wonder, I think they say, now I may be wrong here, they have, it's how many watts, I think it is, or whatever, that you can generate in sprint energy.
Right.
And I said to my mate, who's a road racer, what can you do? And he said, 1,400 if I really choked myself. So I thought, well, I'll ask Philip. So, you know, what can you do, Philip? He says, well, I can't sustain it for long, but somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000. You know, and when you watch them, compete, they've got this. They set up their gears. So it's as much as you can do without making you just stand still on the start. So to wind up that and then they get going. It's great to see, and to see that man now. He's a funny man, and he understands that. He just says, because I keep wanting, I said, are you going to compete? You know, I want him to compete.
Because he'll have that competitive fire in him, won't he? He's got to. There's no way you can become an Olympian and not be competitive.
No, and not just be an Olympian. Be a gold medalist. You know, I know Olympians. There's loads of them come and train at the judo club with us. Guys who've been to the Olympics. Dozens of them, because we're a centre where we train Olympic work for this country. For Paris, we'll have the Paralympians come to us. That we're part of their programme to come to us before they go to Paris. We've just picked up the contract, we just picked up the work for the pre-camp for the Olympic GB team. Most of which in judo, most of which are women. We're very good with that.
So what would this entail? I mean, because obviously these are all going to be black belts and above, aren't they? You know, dans and whatever. So you're not teaching them anything they don't already know.
Right.
We're
a venue. Right. We're a venue.
Right.
They bring, the reason we can do that is we bought the 2012 Olympic judo mat. So Kendal Judo Club, which people in Kendal don't even know exists. Has got the Olympic judo mat, the mat that we bought. We could seat 200 people. We can sleep 70 people.
Bloody hell.
It's a proper setup,
isn't it?
It's a proper setup, and it's owned by a trust.
Right.
It has.
So it's always going to be.
It should always be there all the time. So we're pretty well in the UK. We're a unique venue. And people come and they run their camps from our venue. So we present ourselves. We're a facility. And they'll come with their entirety, their medical, their coaches, their everything. They all bool along. And we feed them, the mat. And they're also away from their own centre. They're away from all distractions.
Which I'd imagine as well, that'll give them a bit of a taster of what's to come, won't it? You know, so they're out of their sort of comfort zones, and they're in sometimes a completely different country, and then it's like, then next stop, the Olympics, I'd imagine, isn't it?
Well, imagine what it was like for the kids. They weren't kids really, the adults. The people, when we did 2012, that was just phenomenal.
I bet it was.
Phenomenal. The people that came.
Yeah.
The largest athlete competing in any sport in the 2012 Olympics was a judo man from Guam who weighed 240 kilos.
Kilos?
240 kilos. I've got an awesome picture of him with me on one arm, pick me up like a child, and my son on the other arm like this. Yeah, he was a big lump. And he won his first fight. He wasn't...
How are you going to throw someone like that?
Well, with difficulty, but once they do start to topple, they tend to fall right over. They do fall over. And remember, the fighting guys were, well, not the same size as him, but they fight big men anyway. You know, so.
Because predominantly judo guys have always been on the bigger side, haven't they? Because when I left school, I went on to a YTS, and there was a guy. There was all these little sections within this unit, and it was kind of like there was general building skills, painting, decorating, sign writing, and it was proper old-fashioned sign writing.
Yeah.
And this sign writer, he was a judo guy, right?
Yeah.
And we, being 16-year-old kids, you know, thought, oh, we'll have him. You know, he got us, he decked us. We'd always try and surprise him, you know, jump on his back or just generally piss about with him. And he was like, always within seconds, we were on the floor, either in a hold or just semi-unconscious because of the way we'd fallen. But it was like, but he was just a big bear of a man. Do you know what I mean? He wasn't. Yeah. He wasn't. There
are a lot of guys, especially when you get into the older categories. Yeah. You know, when you get older and older, this is a massive generalisation. Little guys like me and various other little guys like me, they've often got broken along the way. And I mean broken, like nearly all the guys that I would compete against. I mean, I've fought in the British Masters in this country in judo. I've fought in that 4 times. Yeah. And I've fought in the Worlds twice. I was unfortunate not to get any medal in the Worlds at black belt in judo. I've always won the British. I've always managed to beat. But the little guys have either had their hips replaced or their knees replaced or their shoulders redone. Yeah. The big men, they also the same after a while. Yeah. But there's a lot more bigger men survive into those ages because they don't get broken. The little guys get crunched underfoot. Yeah. But it's a range. Yeah. That's the beauty of the game for a little fella. Yeah. I say I'm 68 kilos. Yeah. So if you want to take me into a judo situation, there's a weight category 2 kilos lighter than me. Right. And then a weight category 6 kilos lighter than that. The lightest weight category in judo is 60 kilos. So how are you categorised in the sports that you do? It's obviously your belts, and then would your age and your weight come into it as well? In the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's exactly as you say. Firstly, you're in a weight category. Yeah. Then you're not in any order. Then you're in, well, what belt are you? Yeah. So that's a category in itself. And then you're age banded. Right. So if I was to say, what am I? Well, I'm a featherweight. Yeah. Which means that with my gi on, I weigh 70 kilos. Yeah. Okay. I'm a purple belt. Yeah. So that's got my belt. And then I'm in, and in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I feel quite unfortunately, they have a ceiling where they just go 60 and above. And I think 60. They're kids. 60. What's all that about? 60. Whereas in judo they keep going up. Oh, do they? They keep going up in 5s. Wow. So I'd be fighting in the 70 to 75-year-olds, and you'd think, oh, I bet there aren't any. There are. I was going to say, there must be a lot more Well, I think in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu it's very much the same as well. If you meet a blue belt or a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu who's my age, it means he only started. He didn't start that long ago. He started late. Yeah. You get a black belt, he could have been doing it 25 years.
Yeah.
And be 70.
Yeah.
It is but there aren't. I mean, I've only met I've been to the Worlds twice. I've only met one man my age, one bloke in all that time. When I went
still
to
actively fighting.
Oh yeah. I went to register when I was 70.
Yeah.
I fought in my first Worlds in.
Was that when you were in Vegas?
Yeah, Vegas. They're in Vegas.
Yeah.
I've been twice to Vegas. I hand my card in.
Yeah.
Oh no, this was in Rome, but it doesn't matter really because it's run by the same people, the Yanks. So. Yeah. And you hand your card in, and he went, "How old are you, sir?" And I said, "I'm 70." And he stands up, and there's like 60 people in the queue. He stands up in the queue and then goes, "We've got a 70-year-old man here," and they're all going. You're going. And I said to him. Obviously, it was only maybe half an hour before I was due to fight. Yeah. So I was, we might say, on it. And so I said to him in a very pointed manner, because that's how I am that close to a fight. Yeah, but I've come here to win this. It was the European Championships at that time. It was in Rome. It was. Right. I said, I've come here to win this. Yeah. And he said, how patronising can you get? He says, "You're a winner already by just being here." Oh, God. And then when I had won it, I wanted to find him to say to him, "I told you." But I couldn't find him anywhere. But that's the way it is. Yeah, that's the way it is.
So you're never fighting anyone younger than 60.
No,
it's always in
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, when you're fighting for real, not when you're obviously
I train. But I don't. People say to me, "Why don't I train? Why don't I compete at lower age bands?" Yeah. And when I've entered the British, you have to sign a form that says, "Would you, if there's nobody in your category, will you go down an age or up a weight?" Right. And I've always said, "I'll go down ages." Yeah. And I've said I go down 2 ages. But if you consider that the age I'm in starts at 60. Yeah. I go down 2. Yeah. And I've arrived at 50. Yeah. My son is like 48. That's like fighting your kids. Literally. And anybody who's even listening to this or whatever, all I say to them is, look back to how you were 10 years ago. Yeah. However old you are, doesn't matter if you're 17. Look back to when you were 7. Yeah. Or if you're 27, 17 or whatever. The physical differences that take place in you is remarkable. Yeah. I was in Paris, fighting in Paris just this year. Yeah. And I ended up having to fight the same guy twice it's quite boring, but anyway, I did. And the thing and I was fortunate enough to beat him on the smallest margin, both times. I beat him on both occasions by what they call a referee's decision. Right. It can't be any closer. It was a skinny job. Yeah. But the thing that impressed him was that I was able to fight at 72 years old for 10 minutes because it's 2 5-minute fights. Right. But I didn't think that was a big deal because... No.
But I suppose because I've
done it all the time, and I don't, and I didn't at any time think I'm going to have to stop now. I'm tired. Yeah. I was just thinking I'm not succeeding here because neither of us scoring any points. That's all, and I was getting more and more frustrated with that. So I do think that if you've done any sport for a long time, I mean, there'll be some games where you say this just doesn't apply. Yeah. But if you're with your peers, so you might say, well, I played rugby and look, all those young lads. Yeah, but if you're a 40-year-old rugby player, play rugby with 40-years and you'll probably be doing quite well. Oh, well, I'm 50 and I play tennis. Well, play tennis with 50-year-olds. Yeah. Play the game with your peers. Yeah. And you suddenly think, oh, maybe I'm okay. Like I train with 25 and 26-year-olds and 30-year-olds all the time. You can very easily start to think, why do I think I can win this? Why do I think I have a chance? But when you fight your peers, it's different.
It is totally, isn't it? Totally. So when we were talking at the stall the other day, you dropped a little nugget of information that you were applied for the SAS back in your youth.
Yeah.
the TA.
It is. Well, I wasn't youthful enough. I wasn't youthful enough.
So was it? It was.
I had a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Who? I was away on holiday.
Yeah.
And I used to train all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think it's reasonable to say, and I think people who succeed in anything are obsessive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hand up.
Yeah.
I'm a bit obsessive.
Yeah.
So I was training. I'd be in my mid-30s. And there was a guy there who came up to me afterwards, just a bloke, on holiday, and said, have you ever thought about joining the territorial SAS? And I just looked at him and laughed. He said, because I'm in the territorial SAS, and I think you'd do all right.
Yeah, yeah.
He said, but you'll need a sponsor. And I knew somebody who'd come out of the SAS.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him when I got back.
Yeah.
And he said, give it a go.
Yeah, yeah.
Give it a go. I'll sponsor you. Yeah. You know, I'll say, you know. So then the IRA was a big thing.
Well, I was going to say, so this must have been, I'm just quickly doing some maths then while you were talking. So you were 30, so 40 years ago. So this would have been...
In early
so this
80s.
was the Iranian embassy sort of era, when the SAS, everyone in the world, every boy, because I was only a boy,
Everyone in the world wanted to be a member.
we'd never heard of the SAS before, and if anyone, I mean, everyone knows the SAS now, but back then, it was like, we were watching Saturday morning TV, and then all of a sudden we interrupt this television show for a news flash, because there'd been this siege going on for a few days, hadn't there, in the Iranian embassy, and then all of a sudden, these guys were jumping through windows and chucking in and zip-lining down, and then it was like, what's going on? And this was like live on television, wasn't it?
It was.
So this must have been a similar-ish time, was it?
It was. And I think it's fair to... I only knew about it more because I'd already taught judo to boys who had been who'd not been in the SAS, but been in the SBS, which is part of the Marines.
Yeah, like the naval.
But so I thought, naively, I'll give it a go.
And obviously now, I think anyone who's into that sort of thing, thanks to television shows and the internet, most people know what's involved with
I didn't.
At the very beginning.
Yes.
You think, nah.
No, I won't bother.
I'll keep it to a fantasy. But
Well,
you
I
didn't,
mean, without getting into, you know, it's boring really. But okay, so I thought, right, I'll have a go.
Yeah.
So first thing is you have to fill in a myriad of paperwork.
Can you imagine?
There's no internet in those days, so you're sending this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
They check you like there's no tomorrow because you're a soft target.
Yeah, yeah.
So they want to make sure that
like
you're
it says
not...
back then, the IRA was a massive thing still then, wasn't it? Massive.
And you sign the Official Secrets Act.
Right.
You don't tell anybody where you're going to.
Yeah.
In the northeast of England.
Well, there was one in Birmingham, near to where we lived. I think it was on. I don't know if it's still there, but it's on Hawthorne Road. I think the road was, and we used to go past it. And this was before you even. It was just a TA camp, so no one took any notice of it. And it had something like, I think it was 22 Squadron SAS.
Well, this was a TA camp, but it didn't have anything written over the door.
This was...
except the core of kids that trained there. Right. Nothing. It was completely blank. You would never.
You wouldn't have known.
There were 40 of us. I lasted about, and we're only doing this, you know, we're weekend soldiers.
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep doing this. They're weekend soldiers, as they're keen to tell you.
Yeah.
I lasted about 3 months. I think by the time and I didn't get binned. That's the only thing I could say. I didn't get binned. I binned myself. I went, I'm not good enough for this. I can't keep, I just can't keep up.
Yeah.
I think there were 11 of us left.
Right.
It was quite remarkable what we did. If I tell you the first night, the first time we went out, right? Yeah, I've no idea. I've not been in the forces before. So I haven't a clue.
No military experience.
No military experience at all. So I go there. They talk this is Friday evening. They talk to you about hypothermia, all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
You draw your kit. You know, you put all your gear on. Yeah. I can dress myself, so I can do that. And you get the Bergen full of gear.
Yeah.
And think I can. I'm not getting too carried away. They put you in the back of a lorry, okay, and then they drive you out
into the moors or something.
Into the moors. We'll stick with the moors rather than me being specific about where you are. But I'll tell you, it was absolutely silent it down. It was 3 a.m. by then. They kicked you out into it and said, "Bivvy up." Well, I remember looking around going, "Bivvy up." That means something to somebody in here. Doesn't mean anything to me. But I could see that what they meant was make yourself a shelter of some kind. So I did. At that time we had a fish farm, so I was used to working in the wet, the cold. I was about 34 years old. I was quite fit and healthy, you know, so I wasn't overawed by any of that. I thought they can throw as much cold weather as they like at me, I'll be sound. So anyway, you try and get some sleep. In the morning, 7 o'clock, up you get. Ready to go, okay? Sergeant comes across, who just coincidentally was about the same age as me. Everybody else was about early 20s.
All right,
teens, early 20s. Even then, I was.
You love pushing yourself when you get to a certain
I was
age.
34, and there was nobody within 10 years of me.
Bloody hell.
Anyway, I thought, I'm not stupid. I thought to myself, Nick, you've got to use the experience you've got of being 34 rather than the physical. These boys are young, fit men. They're going to be fitter than you. Use your brains. So I got stood in close to the sergeant, listening to what he was saying as he was talking to people. And he said to the corporal, who was actually, you know, a member of the regiment, he said to him, "String them out." So he had his Bergen on and he set off. And I thought, "You're not stringing me out." I got right behind him. I mean, a metre behind him. And he set off. Now, he wasn't going daft, he just kept going. The weather was horrendous, right? 6 hours later, he stopped, right? And I'd not moved a metre from the back of him. I thought...
6 hours?
6 hours. But just steady. Just steady. You weren't, you know, it wasn't anything ridiculous. It was the amount of time.
I mean, 6 hours walking's bad enough, let alone.
And you were just jogging steady. It was like walloping it down and so on. I didn't realise there were at least 7, 8, 9 had already gone.
They'd
gone. Well, they'd been. The sergeant had just said, "Take them away."
Really?
Yep, take them away. Put them in the lorry.
In the truck.
Anyway, so that was an introduction. We then went on. We'd spent that night there. We did this. We did that. The amusing thing was, just to conclude, so as not to go on and on and on.
No.
The man who'd given us the talk on hypothermia only got hypothermia.
He did.
He was telling us not to be casual about this, not be casual about that, and he got hypothermia. They had to take him off. I mean, he was obviously there. I think he just underestimated how the wind chill factor and how wet and cold it was going to get. And I don't think
because it's always the wind that kills you, isn't it?
Absolutely
always,
murder.
It's mental.
I mean, I thought, SAS, things are we're tough lads. Us. And I remember we were up on this fell top and we walked round. Well, we were yomping away. We came round a corner. There was a farmer there, and he had his wellies on, and he had a mac on with a piece of string round him and a stick and a dog. And he went, "All right, lads," and he looked like he could do that all day
long.
He was just at work, and I was thinking, "Oh, yes, we're pushing the boat out."
It's funny you should say that. We're going to go off piste a little bit, but you know these people that do these ultra marathons and they run like 100 miles and this, that, and the other. There was this guy, and I don't know what like you read things or you see things, and it was something about the triathletes.
Yes.
Not the triathlon. Iron Man. That was the thing.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, where did it start? And you go back into it, and it turns out that it was something to do with they did this. What it was, they did these marathons and runs and all this. And there was this old boy. He was like a sort of farmery type, and he thought, well, I can do this. And they're just kind of. He didn't realise that they stopped at night, to sleep and whatever. And he just carried on. So they all started off sprinting off, and they did everything. And he was way behind, and everyone thought he's never going to do it. Ended up winning it because he just thought you just carried on, whereas everyone else was stopping and starting. It was that same sort of I think that we were just saying then with the...
If it's just what we normally do, what's the big deal?
Yeah,
you know,
what's the same with
big
that
deal?
farmer? When it, he's out in the all weathers, and this guy was some sort of shepherd or something mad, and he was just like, he just plodded on, and he just carried on for like 100 hours plus or something, whereas they'd kept stopping, and it was like the classic tortoise and the hare.
Yeah, exactly. So, it really did bring it home to you how. Well, for a start, the sergeant said, these are things that stick in your mind. This is a long time ago. Then it was the first time in my life I'd failed at something physical.
Right.
And I didn't like it.
No,
I thought,
well,
I'm not superhuman. I didn't think I was. But, you know, I thought,
it's true.
I thought, but he said, they don't call us special for nothing.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten.
No.
Because they are.
Yeah.
They are. And when you're in there, you know, you go in, when you go through the door.
Yeah.
You go through the. Firstly, it's the door's not wide open. You don't just go. Please come in. So you knock on the door, and as they say, if your name's not on the list, you're not coming in.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to go to the venue in your. You've got to go in your civvies. You can't wear, like you see kids going to the corps and this sort of thing. You can't do that.
Deny that, can you?
And when you get in there, you look around, and the guys that are in uniform who are there, they're just little, usually scrawny, sort of, crag ratty types. They're not.
Yeah, they're not. Well, I don't know what happened then, but I think the camera overheated, so we've had to have a pause for half an hour, and we've had the camera outside cooling down, and hopefully that should be it for another 20 minutes or so. So we were talking about your escapades in joining the SAS
or not joining the SAS. Yes. Endeavouring.
Yeah. Which was like Nick was telling me off camera that you kind of binned yourself, didn't you? You got to a point where heat exhaustion, and it was just, you know. I
think it was obvious that I wasn't cut out. I mean, and you know, if you've anything about you, you know, when you're among people who, as the sergeant kept telling us, they don't call us special for nothing. And I thought to myself, Nick, you're not that special. Well, you are special, but in a different way. So I thought.
Like I said, it's something to be kind of proud of. You've been there, kind of done it.
Well, the one thing I will say, I don't know if it's a thing to be particularly proud of, but I think what it does is this. I don't think I've been scared of challenging myself. That's why I do the things that I still do at my age. And I think if I could encourage anybody to do anything, it would be to say, you should go to the edge of where you're comfortable, and then take a stride into the bit where you're not comfortable.
Absolutely.
It does no harm.
It doesn't do you any harm.
And I tell you what, it makes you feel absolutely fantastic when you step back into normality.
Yeah. Because you've been there, you've been in that little danger zone in your world, in your head. You've kind of either embraced it and carried on even further, or you thought, oh shit. But at least you've been there, and you know, kind of almost where your limitations.
Well, as I've said to some of the guys who compete in this game I play, well, you can't expect to see the view from the mountain if you don't go right to the top and have a look. I mean, have a look. You don't have to jump off. Have a look.
No.
It does no harm at all.
Of course it doesn't.
You know?
Of course it doesn't.
I don't know.
So it was really, really quite interesting, and it's led nicely into the fact that, I don't know if any people know this, but there's a guy called Percy Topless. Was it Percy Topless?
Topless.
And he was allegedly, he was paramount in leading a mutiny in the First World War in about 1917 in one of the fields in France. There's a bit of hoo-ha about that, but to cut a very long story short, there was a television show called The Monocle Mutiny, and it was on the BBC way back in the 80s. And I kind of distinctly remember it. It was a really good TV show. And there was a guy called Paul McGann in it, wasn't there? He was one of the actors. And Paul McGann has also played in another film which is set in Cumbria called With Nail and I, which is kind of loosely in the shaft kind of sort of area. But I did a little bit of research on this before we started this today, and it turns out that Percy Topless was shot because he was shot by two cops just outside Penrith, and me and Nick are just going to talk about this now because Nick's got a sort of nice connection in a way, isn't it? To the story. I'll let Nick continue. I think I've talked too much.
Oh, no. Well, I was surprised to find that, firstly, that there is a blue plaque on the wall on the A6 on the other side of, if you're going towards Carlisle, on the left-hand side there, which says that he was shot there.
Yeah.
Now, there's an interesting family connection we have in that the inspector of police at that time was William Ritchie. Okay. Now, my middle name is Ritchie.
Right.
It's a family name because our families cross each other. And so he was on my father's side, there is that connection between the Ritchie family. And I think actually this may be an aside and may not be, it may be family,
legend.
Correct. Yeah. That he was actually a Cumberland Western wrestler as well.
Right.
So
maybe it's just in the genes.
Maybe it's in the genes. But that, I think the story goes but I'm quite happy to be corrected, that he was the inspector.
Yeah.
And he went out. They knew the monocled mutineer was.
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep doing that. The monocled mutineer was within their jurisdiction.
Right.
And he needed to be apprehended.
Yeah.
It was like there was a national hunt on for him. It was a big deal. And so they set out to catch him.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was that I believe that the son of the then chief of police went with the group.
Right.
And the family legend is that actually it was that young man that shot Topless. But that my ancestor had to take the rap for it because they shouldn't have had the young man there and he shouldn't have been armed. So it is interesting. What the reality of it is, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, Topless did get shot there. There was involved with the local police inspector, and it was all shrouded in, oh dear, who did, what did. But then he ended up dead. That's absolutely certain.
Yeah.
And there was some, how did he get shot? What he should have been apprehended, all this sort of thing. But and then that Paul McGann played the part with the BBC.
Yeah.
And when he was here in Penrith.
So I was just about to say that. I'm guessing they filmed it kind of locally.
They filmed it. They filmed it. A lot of it was filmed in just above Ascombe.
Was it?
Yeah. My wife will kill me that I can't remember the name. But it'll come to me in a moment. But
Celeron, around that area.
Yeah, above. Yeah, it is there. It was a farmstead up on above Celeron and up that way.
Yeah.
And they stayed at what was then the new hotel, the North Lakes. They stayed at the North Lakes, and my wife worked there.
Yeah.
And so we got quite friendly.
Yeah.
And we trained together in the gym and this sort of thing. So I just thought it was a phenomenal set of connections that he ended up playing the monocled mutineer, and that in history the inspector had been a relative of mine.
And they say there's 3 degrees of separation from everybody, don't they? And it's that. I mean, that's weird in itself, right? But I really enjoyed the monocled mutineer when I was that age. So I'll have been 17, 18 when it was on telly. And if someone had said 40 years later, you're going to be living in the place where that happened, talking to a relative of a guy that's connected to it, it's like, it is
strange,
weird, isn't it? How it all
very, very, very strange.
And spins
I think the more you travel, the more you bump into people that leave you with, how can that possibly have happened?
Yeah, yeah.
We set out to go to Japan.
Yeah.
We missed the flight. I won't bore you with that detail. We're in the bar. Never done it before, and we'll never do it again. They then said to us, well, you know, how are you going to get to Japan? And there was talk of us having to go away and come back in 3 days and all this. And we were going for a seminar, so we needed to be there. And so they said, well, we can send you, but you'll have to go through Shanghai. But you'll need, then it gets more complicated, but you'll need a visa because you're going into China. But they can give you a visa if you just stay in the airport. So off we go. And there we are, sitting in a Chinese airport, never expecting that this would happen. And we're in one of the lounges. There's just us 3 men and these 2 other English women. And of course, they're English, so we talk, we chat. It's a mother and daughter. And we start to chat about how we're here and why we're here, and everybody's laughing and joking, and you know, and then we start to say, well, where do you come from, and so on. And the older lady, the mum, says, well, I come from Cumbria. And as soon as she said Cumbria, I thought, oh dear, there's a connection here. Where's this connection going to lead us to? So they say, well, he comes from Cumbria, or he lives in Cumbria. And I went, so where do you live in Cumbria? And she said, oh, well, you'll probably not have heard. It's only tiny. I said, well, where is it? She said, well, it's a little place called Yanworth. And I went, Yanworth? I said, my children go to Yanworth school. And there you are in China, bumped into somebody from Yanworth.
One of the smallest.
It's not even a village.
It's a hamlet, isn't it, at most?
It's a small gathering of houses. And there you were. So I think these things are they are bizarre,
aren't they?
And it is lovely. I like that those, you know, when you say, oh, have you met, oh, I know so and so, and it's somebody that knows somebody that,
it's awesome.
It is.
Really
Certainly
good.
is.
Really good. So have you got anything else to add to your...
I think I've added quite enough. I'm genuinely concerned that I'm bored. There's people falling asleep watching this.
They haven't.
I hope so.
They haven't. I'm sure you'll have inspired somebody. You'll have inspired people. I mean, you're fit, you're active, you're fun, you're still young in your mind. I think that's a lot of things with people. They don't stay young in the mind, do they? Do you know what I mean? Like you're still, you don't even look your age, but nevertheless, even if you did, no one would think you were the age you were, because
this does beg the question. You normally wear glasses, don't you? I think, or you should do as well. What can I put your glasses? Oh no! Oh no! What have I said? I genuinely feel that a lot of people write themselves off in terms of doing things that they should do. I'm talking physically, but anything. They write themselves off and say, I'm too old. I couldn't do that. What's the point of starting that now? I'm starting too late. I think that is absolutely just a recipe for sitting at home and doing nothing. You know, I've met people, I've fought against people who I've said to them, so what are you doing now? You know, and these are men who are nearly retired. And they're all saying, oh, well, I'm retired now. I remember thinking of one guy, a guy I fought in Paris just this year. I'm retired now, but I'm doing a PhD. I mean, you know, it's not going to help him in his career. It's not going. He's doing it for the sake of doing it and to keep his mind active and moving. I think it's just too easy to give up on your dreams if you've got any dreams. 100%, you know,
100%. You should just. You're never too old to. Well, I mean, anyone who's listened to previous episodes, they know that I don't talk about age as an age. I call it a level. So you're in my eyes, you're at level 72, so it's level 73. I'm at level 56. And it just sounds, if you say, oh, I'm 72, if you say I'm at level 72, that just it instantly makes you look at all that experience he's got, you know. 72 levels of, you know, anyone who's a gamer, they can comprehend it better, and it just sounds cooler and more relevant, I think.
And isn't it funny, because of my attitude, I'm not naive. When I stand in front of a mirror, I go, yep, it's true. Yes, it's true. But the number of times I've stood in front of competitors who are 10 years younger than me and looked at them and thought, I'm a bit worried about fighting him. He looks old. do you know, I might hurt him.
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely, I do think to myself, it is how you see yourself.
Yes.
I've been really lucky. I've spent a lot of time with training and working with young, active people, maybe not even that young. And I think that's made me think of myself in a different department as that. Yeah. I hate the phrase. I don't want to be drawn into the age is just a number. Yeah. No, it's not just a number. No. You know, I'm under no illusion that
whether we like it or not, you're going to get to certain
anno domini, as it will have its way. Yeah. But why give in to it so soon? Yeah. Why say I'm 45, I can't possibly do that? Yeah. You know, my brother, who's only 18 months younger than me, when we were 35 years old, once said to me, "We're middle-aged, you know, now." Because I don't want to shock the people who are listening to this. The expletives that came out of my mouth were totally unacceptable in public. But they are. I certainly am not middle-aged. And bizarrely, even though I am the age I am now, I don't think of myself in that bracket that says middle-aged. No. Middle-aged gives you the impression that you've just thrown the towel in.
Exactly. Well, that's another... You see, there's another way I look at that. I look at life as like there's youth, sort of middle age and old age. That's what the generalisation. Yeah. But I look at it as, so you're born, then you've got your morning, then you've got sort of midday, then you've got early afternoon. Yeah. Then I class myself as being in the evening of my life at the moment. Yeah. Early evening. You know, then you've got late evening, then you've got night time. Yeah. So I've got I'm at level 56 and I'm just at the early evening.
Yeah, and I don't really like to go to bed, so I'm hoping to come right round. I'm coming round full circle. I'm coming full circle to see how I do.
But I think if you have that way of thinking about life, then, you know, you're probably like me as well. Nothing really phases you. You keep your mind open to everything. Yes. And then that also just, I don't know, keeps you young, keeps you...
I think also, it's very, in some ways, what I do is very easy because it's easy to set yourself some kind of target. Yeah. It's not difficult to do that. You can say, oh, well, I'd like to achieve this by this or that by that. Yeah, yeah. I've set myself out because people get so carried away with the fact that I'm 72/73 and doing what I'm doing. I've said to myself, well, imagine what they'll think when I'm 80, because I'm going to be here when they're 80 unless I drop dead. Yeah. So, you know, brace yourselves, lads, because I'm still going to be here. I ain't going nowhere.
We're doing a part two.
Yeah, you do. And if I haven't dropped dead, I'll still be having a go. I like it. You'll need your eyes testing by then.
Full time then.
Absolutely.
But it's true. I mean, I saw a brilliant quote. I think it was one of the American presidents said it in the 1920s or something like that. It's something like he knows people that die die at 25 but don't get buried till they're 75. Yeah. And it's like, and we both know so many people like that. Yeah. It's like they're just wasting their life. And I'm not saying people should go out and chuck themselves around on a dojo floor like you do, but you know, just go and experience something. You know, something that might pique your interest, and maybe they've listened to this and they've thought, you know what, maybe I should just go and walk up that hill that's just down the road and have a look at the view from the top. Yes. You know, and see what's beyond that. Yes. And it might then inspire them to go to the next hill.
Absolutely. I could not agree more.
It's just as simple as that, isn't it? Just
you don't want to be in the waiting room. You're just you're in the departure lounge.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're in. Yeah. We've got that in common. Every human being has that in common. Yeah. But you don't need to like engage in it and say, please come and get me. No. You know, I think you really got to say to yourself, all right, the day will come when the day comes. But boy, in the meantime, I'm gonna have a riot. Yeah. I'm gonna make sure that I'm wrecked by the time I arrive there.
I'm in that wooden box.
I'm in that wooden box and go,
whoa,
yes.
Look at him.
It's no use if they look in the box and go, oh, look at he looks fit as much as I was.
In a fairly way, but
yes, no, he looks a fit lad. You want to look like, oh, he's wrecked. He's absolutely.
Been here 20 years ago.
Yes, exactly. He's absolutely put a full shift in, and that's, I think, all you can hope for is put a shift in.
Absolutely.
You know, don't sit at home watching the telly.
You don't have to go to any extremes.
No, you don't.
Just find something you like. Just do it.
I think it's fair to say that every one of us, myself included, I'm sure you will agree with this, we get into a rut.
Yes.
Well, you can't help it.
Yeah.
A fur-lined rut, as one of my coaches used to say.
Yeah.
But he says something else which I think is worth thinking about. Nothing worth doing at all or having isn't on the other side of some effort or pain.
Exactly.
And if you look back in your life rather than looking forward, look back and find things that really worked for you.
Yeah.
And you'll find you had to do something to get there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it was, even if it's a tiny thing you had to do. You had to step out of your mundane and your comfort zone and go, oh, I'm glad I did that. Yeah.
And then the thing that you've achieved by doing that gives you that sense of purpose.
It does.
You know, it gives you a sense of achievement, maybe gives you a bit of goosebumps and makes you feel...
makes you feel alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes you feel alive.
That was one of the reasons for kind of starting this, was to do that, because I'd quite happily got into a rut and just sit at home, watch television and just vegetate in front of the telly. But then someone put the idea in my head and it's kind of just evolved into what it's becoming. So, and I'm really, really enjoying it because I'm getting to meet really interesting people. Like, I was talking to you off camera and we were saying one of the reasons for starting it was I meet so many interesting people at the stall and I get maybe a little 1 or 2 minutes to have a chat with them, and then another customer comes, so you have to stop. And so this is just an elongation, a kind of I'm happy to talk to people for however long it is, you know, find out about them. And so many, like, I mean, you've just mentioned so many interesting people tonight that people wouldn't have known about, you know, and hopefully I might get some of them on as guests. But it's great because everybody's got a story to tell. You know, there's thousands of people to sort of have on, and it's kind of when people say, well, what's your podcast about? I say, well, everything and anything, you know. It's going to be, literally is everything and anything. So it's great, and it's great for you, people like you, to come on and share your stories and, like I say, hopefully inspire people.
Well, I've enjoyed it. I don't know if I'm inspiring anybody, but at the end of the day, I do think that if there's one person who watches this and does something that they've thought, oh, sod it, I'll get on and get it done.
Yeah.
You know, just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just give it a go. It doesn't have to be a sport. It can be play a musical instrument. It can be walk this, run this, do this. Of course it is.
And I know for a lot of people, I mean, we've walked into various places and institutions by ourselves. We know the intimidation factor that there is in certain things. And I can imagine for some people, even walking into like an art class where there's phenomenal artists and you can barely draw a stick man, you know. So there's going to be that intimidation factor in everything, isn't there? You know, because you're going to get people that are really great at whatever the thing is that you want to go into, and then you're starting from scratch. But you've also got to remember that they started from scratch once.
Of course they did.
You know, no one was born. Everybody has practiced and practiced and practiced to become. You weren't born a black belt at judo, were you?
No.
Became a 3-time European champion because of it.
No.
You put the hours in, you put the effort in, you put the practice in, and that's what people don't kind of, you know.
Well, they don't grasp that, I don't think. But at the end of the day, people say to me, I think it's phenomenal what you've achieved. I say, well, not really. I'm just older than you. You know, let's just look at where you're at now. Yeah. Well, I was where you are.
Yeah.
All I did was keep coming, because people are always saying to me, well, what's the secret? What do you do? You know, what training do you do? I go, honestly, there isn't a secret. It's very, very simple. You turn up every single session. You'll go. I said, do you think I don't come home, sit down and think to myself, it's nice and warm in front of that fire? I don't know. It's absolutely throwing it down outside. Shall I bother? Would anybody care? Yeah. As I've said to the guys I train with in Carlisle, I've certainly said it in Kendal. I say, I've driven here many times thinking, why am I bothering? But I've never driven home thinking that was a waste of time. You know, so that's all you do. Whatever it is you set out to do, you just tick those boxes. Just turn up and do it.
Consistency.
Just that's it.
If there is a secret, it's consistency.
Correct.
Isn't it?
And that's it.
That's the secret to anything, to be successful.
Just keep doing it. So those people, I know there's been a story I've heard, somebody who is a story of a lady who was a world standard cellist, and she said she used to get sick of people coming up to her saying, I wish I could play the cello like you. And she said quite simply, well, you could. All you got to do is pick up a cello, train 8 hours a day, train 8 hours a day, train for 15 years, and the likelihood is you'll be there or thereabouts where I am. And that is a simple and honest truth. People say, yes, but you're gifted. You go, no, I'm not gifted. Yes, I'm just put the graft in. Some people have an ability to go forward a little bit quicker at times. So you could say I'm gifted. Well, you had a bit more dexterity in your hands. But the number of people I've met who were really good, you know, you could see a judo. I mean, I know a bit more about the judo. You see a kid and you go, whoa, now they could be good. But you can't just be good. You've got to be good, and then you've got to be determined and carry on. And where are they now? They don't even do it anymore. You know, so if someone said to me, you have a choice between coaching somebody who's very talented and coaching somebody who's very determined, give me the determined player every time. Because I'll still be working with them in 10 years' time, and the talented player will have got fed up and gone home in no time at all, because they're used to it just coming easy. You want people who've had to work hard right from the start, and that applies in every part of life. Everything. Yeah, absolutely
everything. Well, on that note, I think we have called it a day. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for coming, Nick. Hopefully everybody's enjoyed, whether you've been watching it here on good old YouTube channel or listening on one of the podcast. Oh, here comes the rain. I don't know if you can hear the rain, so I think we've timed it perfectly. Yeah, so again, thanks to Nick for coming to this episode, and thanks for you guys as always for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed the show, and I keep saying I'm never going to say this again, but you know what to do. Give us a like and subscribe if you want to. Only because it helps the boring old algorithm get me noticed, and means I can do more stuff like this for you. So thanks again for listening. Thanks for Nick for coming on, and I shall see you soon again in the Caravan of Love with my next guest or victim, whatever you want to look at it like. Thanks guys. Take care. See you soon. Bye.